I'd like to call this meeting of the City Council to order here. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Taking roll call, we have one council member missing. Dan Collison had to work tonight. Do we have any public comment? Hearing no public comment, the agenda, we do have one modification. We're going to be striking out K1 and moving that to the March 7th meeting, I believe it was, right? So yeah, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda with that change?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Lundin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Do I have a motion to approve the city council minutes for January 31st, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Well, we also have a second one here too, so, and then February 7th, 2023.
I have a question on that one. So, I noticed that there was a printer item that was moved out of the consent agenda and into business item K9 on the minutes. So if you look at K9, it was on the resolution to enter into agreement with Minnesota Computer Systems, Inc. I thought that was in the consent agenda, so I was wondering why that was in a business item on the minutes.
Looking at the revised one?
So it was in the, Councilmember Merrill, it was within the consent agenda. However, I believe it was yourself who wanted to request a vote differently on it. So we cannot vote separately. Consent agenda has to be voted on entirely as a whole. So we moved it as a business item, so you can be voting separately. And also, just as a side note, if you do want to have any kind of conversations about items within the consent agenda, the place to pull them is at the time of adoption of the agenda in the evening, not when we get to consent. That would help, because then we will automatically pull them as a business item and renumber them as we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Well, you didn't give me a chance to read the second one. All right, I have a motion to approve the minutes from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Lundin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. And then announcements, we usually mention the next council meetings. I don't have a list on my stuff here. So March 7th, anybody have those, a list of those by any chance? When our next meetings are? The announcements section here I have is blank, so.
So we do have a meeting, sorry about that, Mayor.
That's okay.
So we do have a city council meeting on March 7th. We will not have an EDA meeting at that evening. And then we have committee of the whole on March 21st at 5 p.m. City council meeting at planning commission at 6 p.m. on the 21st, and then the city council at 7 p.m. And we, backing up to February, sorry about that, we do have next Tuesday, February 28th, as our Park Rec and Culture Board meeting at 6 p.m.
Thank you for that. Do I have any council committee reports?
Yeah, we had fire district meeting last Tuesday. The fire department, we've been looking into changing some of our call runs. And I apologize, I forgot to grab meetings minutes out of my truck, but they are going to eliminate low priority calls on a 30-day trial via the sheriff's office request to see how it works for 30 days. It'll impact some of the run counts. It's not like it's gonna drop $10,000 off of it or any means, but it's a step forward. Trying to eliminate some of those calls. If they are called in need for helping lifting someone, that call is going to be there. If it's distress calls, breathing, unconsciousness, something like that, they will make that run call. But they, some of the other low priority calls, they will make that call if they are requested to. I believe Chief Jankovich has talked to you about some of those too.
We've had discussions before that meeting on
Yep.
that, and is, my thought on, just generically on that, is it's a duplication of resources. I mean, we're already there, we're gonna be there anyway, unless it's something priority-wise. So I don't see there's no public safety concerns with that, because our officers or first responders are gonna be there. Because 90-some% of those calls are not immediate medical type calls.
Yep. So it all depends on the run counts. I mean, it's, their counts are, you know, they're already looking at the run counts are gonna here we're in end of February and they're already thinking that they're gonna go over our run counts from last year already. It all depends. We had I think I think the fire district had some low counts. December, I think, was down.
I think it was kind of a slow start to the year, yeah. The year starts December 1st, yeah.
Yep, it was a slow start, which was trending right, you know, until we can finalize some other things. And you have to realize the way the joint power agreement's written with the other entities, it has to be a 100% agreement on changing the bylaws, where years ago, it was the city of Isani that was fighting all the changes. And then in the last 4 years, it's went the other way, and there's one entity that's fighting a lot of these changes, which would be for the good for everybody, but that entity's fighting it. And it's making it tough, but we're getting through. I'm actually the chair of the fire district, and they are very happy with me. Where prior to this would have been, they wouldn't want any part of that. So, we're gaining places there with it, but it's, you know, it's an uphill battle.
And I think the change that you mentioned it really makes a lot of sense. And
Longevity.
Like Travis said too, I mean, you're duplicating your resources, there's no reason to really do that, and we get charged, you know, per call, you know, as far as the joint powers agreement goes, so yeah, I mean, it's definitely gonna be some cost savings, it's not gonna be huge, but year over year, I mean, that really adds up, and.
Longevity.
Yeah, you know, and it, you know, I know talking with Al too, I mean, he had mentioned that this, just for retaining employees, it's less times that you gotta get out of bed to go help somebody that, you know, that an officer could easily help themselves, you know, and so you don't have to send guys out to 3 in the morning, and you can have somebody that's already out working at that time of night, so I think all of that is a benefit for sure.
And they discussed maybe removing the duty crews, and I was like, nah, I don't think that's a wise choice to do, because there's times that duty crew does things that save a lot of the other firemen from having to make calls to things, so it's, like you said, in a long haul, it will make a dent. It's not gonna make a huge dent, all in all. But we're doing a 30-day trial, we wanna see how it works, there might be some more tweaks to that. And after 30 days, we're gonna revisit it, so.
Awesome.
I have one on, so I attended the community ed meeting. Just had some interesting info. So preschool numbers are getting back to their pre-COVID numbers. They are seeing a relatively large increase in homeschooling. That's up 30% in the last 2 years. Usage numbers of the community ed buildings have gone up 57% in the last year. They're continually working on parking/pickup challenges at the schools, because that's always an issue. And then they are changing their publishers for their flyers, so the new ones will be a little bit better and glossy and come out sooner, so people have more time to plan for the events. And then I went to the Chamber of Commerce meeting. The mayor of Cambridge presented at the luncheon. He discussed some of the upcoming retail growth, as well as housing developments. KFC is coming into Cambridge. Pizza Ranch has been slow, but will be finished. And they're exploring plans to collaborate on a passenger train system connecting from the cities through Cambridge to Duluth. There were a lot of questions from audience about that, which I thought was interesting. And as well as they plan to do the Highway 95 expansion, railroad repairs changes near 2025 timeframe. So that's all in the works. And I know Jimmy has his Chamber of Commerce presentation next month, so.
They've been working on that light rail from Minneapolis up to Duluth for a long time.
Yep.
It was shot down, it's gonna cost us thousands of dollars for a program that isn't gonna work.
Sure. Yeah.
Because the Amtrak tried doing that, and if they couldn't make money at it, what makes you think that's gonna be a moneymaker?
I agree. You know, I had some conversations with some of the Cambridge staff, and they seemed to be for it, which I was kind of surprising to me as well, but I guess we'll see what happens, so.
Yeah, because they're gonna have a spur rail, and that's what they want.
Yep. Hopefully, it doesn't negatively affect us at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, many things like that make any money. It's a cost for sure. But I did hear, I mean, I've had people tell me stories that, you know, one of my friend's moms, and she's 80-something, and she used to take the train down when she was like 15 with her sister. They'd take the train down to Minneapolis, and so, I mean, there must have been a time where you
yeah.
could do that, but yeah, I mean,
Look at the the light rail in Minneapolis. Look at the look at the actual dollars that thing, it's losing money year after year after year. And you think that's gonna be any different? It's not. There's just not that many people are gonna travel from Minneapolis to Duluth.
Yep. I mean, look at even Chicago, their train system is one of the most dangerous in the world. Their Blue Line or L Line or whatever they call it, there's people that get murdered on it all the time. And I think it's just anybody that's gonna be able to afford to commute is usually gonna have a car, and the people that aren't gonna wanna drive their own car are not necessarily going to be the best all the time. So I just thought that was interesting. The community should know about that.
The thing's been dead. It's been brought up and dead and brought up and dead numerous times. Yeah. It's just somebody wanting to get their special interest and get the money into it.
I remember when I first moved here in 2006 or something, man, that was something they were talking about back then even, so. Anything else for council committee reports? All right, moving on to business item K2, resolution to amend Resolution 2023-022, designating committees and representative city commissions and advisory boards for year 2023.
So
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this was requested to place on the agenda this evening to ensure that we had any and all alternates listed for those boards and commissions that council deemed appropriate.
So I had brought this up because Jimmy had asked me to be a substitute at a meeting, and I went to it, but apparently so I think we should have an alternate for every board. I mean, say if one of us can't make it, it's nice if someone can, because then you represent the city as well as you can get notes from that meeting and send them to each other, like I did that for the community ed board, and I thought that was important. So I think I think we should have an alternate for every board, just because, I mean, then if someone from the city can't make it, then.
He is.
No, there isn't. There's a bunch of them that there's no alternate. If you look at them, there's like eight.
Most of them don't have an alternate,
There's like 8 of
actually.
them that don't have
Yeah.
alternates. So I think we should have an alternate for all of them.
And some of these are only like one meeting a year, so,
Right.
you know, that's maybe the reason that there's not. But yeah, the community education one is a meeting almost every month. And I thought you were my alternate, and you're the alternate for me for Parks and Rec, but not for this. So that was my mistake to
Yep.
ask. I appreciate you going,
Yep.
so. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's a horrible idea to have an alternate for all of them. I mean, I know there was one time the one meeting a year for the committee I was on before, you had to cover for me that one time when I was stuck out of state, so. I mean, it does happen, so.
Yeah, I think we should appoint an alternate for everyone. I
With
mean,
Dan.
it
It
doesn't
also
hurt.
could be your responsibility. If you can't make it, you got 4 other people up here you could call at any time.
Right, yeah.
It's, so appointing somebody on there, what
Yeah,
happens
that's a
if I
good
still
question.
can't make it?
Can we do the council at large as the alternate? And we just work it out
Good
amongst
idea.
ourselves?
You could, Mayor, to answer your question, I guess shortly, yes, you could do that. Having an alternate is really what tells staff that council member is also permitted to get paid for attending. Otherwise, other members can go to these, but then they wouldn't get paid. So, you know, for example, if Councilmember Lundin wanted to go to the park board, he wasn't listed as the person or the alternate, he wouldn't get paid for attending. This just tells us who would get paid the $50 for attending, so.
You're telling me
but you
I
could.
owe Luke $50.
That's okay. It's a community service. I don't mind.
Councilmember Merrill will not get paid for attending as he was not an alternate.
Maybe I can pay you in pizza or something.
But we could, if the desire was to have a council member be an alternate, you know, at however you do that, you just have to be careful as you're talking. If you called one council member, they couldn't make it, you call another calling multiple council members, it'd be tricky, but.
Okay.
And I think if you're gonna do that, well, yeah, no, that's fine. We have full council, so. I don't need to be an alternate, I got enough stuff to do. So, it's between the,
Well, you mind if we just make it the council at large, and then, I mean, you could turn us down if somebody wanted to ask you, but I mean, we'd make a point to.
that's what her
ask other
point
people
is,
for it.
so
Yeah,
they can
right.
keep track of what's going on too.
Right, but I mean, we would just have to communicate that with the city staff then, if,
Just like we do anytime we go to any meeting, we have to tell them, so.
right. And we have to review it every quarter for our pay anyway, so. I mean, is that,
I mean, I think we need one, because otherwise we won't have attendance at that meeting, and it's important for the city of Isani to be at all these meetings. I mean, community ed, they were happy I was there, because there's input from the city that matters, you know, so we need an alternate for everything. I mean, even if we don't have to use it, doesn't mean it's gonna be used much, but
what do you guys think about just doing
Yeah,
council at
I'm
large on
good
these
with that.
ones that
I
are?
agree.
I'm good with
Yeah.
that.
Okay. And then if we did have a situation where we were calling multiple council members, we could maybe just call city staff and ask them to maybe help us out if we got turned down by the first person or something like that, or,
But I also think you need to realize Mr. Carlson isn't here right now.
right, yeah.
So to act on that,
We wanna
where
maybe
he
wait.
could be an alternative, or he couldn't do it as an alternative reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I told you, I don't need to be an alternate for anything.
Well,
I
but
got
you,
enough things.
I mean, if we do that, then, I mean, he could, it just would be depending on the situation. If he couldn't do it that time or didn't wanna do it that time, he wouldn't have to either, you know what I mean?
Or if, say, I mean, I think, say if I wasn't available, or say if Steve wasn't available for the fire district, and then Carlson wasn't available either, it would be nice to have another alternate. I mean, it's a long
Then that
shot,
would
but
just come as a committee of the same thing. You're doing the same thing by saying you're having an alternate. You could have, if Dan can't make it and he said, I can't make it, then I'd have to call one of you guys. It's not that difficult. But if you want to make an alternate, you can't put 4 different alternates on there.
right,
So then you might as well just make it council at large.
yep, for all of them,
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing then at that point.
That
correct.
just gives us flexibility. I mean, everybody up here is busy for sure, so.
So Mayor, what I'm hearing is that it would be, I don't think the correct terminology would be council at large, but I think that we would say that whoever is the identified individual representing these committees or meetings could appoint someone in their place. We'll just put together a separate statement within this resolution.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And then we do have council representative, or I'm sorry, we do have a city representative at some of these committees that has a city staff. Do you also want to ensure that a council member is at those, or is the staff, if someone wasn't able to go to a chamber meeting, we do always have one staff person there. Do you want there to be an alternate for the ones that we have staff as well?
I think it's important for a council member to be at that one.
I think don't they all, because even the chamber is Luke.
Yep.
As,
I mean, for an alternate. I mean, you do have a backup person, there is
oh, I see what you're saying, like, yeah, I mean,
someone
I
who
think.
could speak on behalf and give an update. I mean,
Right,
we do
so
call
you-
it council
Because you're
committee
gonna
report.
have city staff there, but do you want an alternate for that one? Yeah. I mean, I don't think it hurts to have an alternate. I mean, if you
Just
can't
keep-
find
I don't
one,
I don't mind being an alternate, I just need to know dates and times, or what time of day do,
and I agree with you, Luke. I mean, if we're gonna go do it, then we should always be consistent about it and have a representative there, so. Yeah, I'd say for that, probably too, once you get.
Just an overarching statement that,
Yeah.
for any of them, if they're alternate, I mean, if the alternate can't make it, or if we can't find alternate, I mean, so be it, but, I don't know. It
I would
keeps it more flexible for everybody.
Staff will make those changes and we just require a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All right, I've got a motion to make the changes as discussed from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. All right, moving on to K3, an ordinance to consider amending Chapter 227, parking and storage.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So we did have a couple recent discussions on amending Chapter 227 to allow for larger vehicles. I believe that all the changes as discussed at the last committee of the whole, or I'm sorry, February 7th city council meeting, which was our last meeting discussion on this, have been included in this draft ordinance change. Most notably would be the distance from the curb, which would be 2 feet away and 4 feet from 4 feet from the curb line, sorry, I couldn't find here, and 2 feet from either side of the sidewalk, and not to block the vision clearance triangle as defined within the zoning code.
And that was that discussion that we had at the last council meeting there.
Correct. And this ordinance has been posted for the required 10 days.
The only thing I didn't think about it at the time when we had this discussion. I think if there are driving commercial vehicles, parking them in their yard, if they damage a neighbor's property, they need to repair it. I mean, you know, if you're driving a commercial vehicle, I mean, Mr. Heeman, I think you know, you're pretty aware of how you handle that vehicle. And if you're whipping into somebody's yard and tear it up or smack into their mailbox or something, you should be responsible for repairing it for that person.
I agree.
Well, that'd be the same though, even if they were driving their own personal vehicle or truck or.
Absolutely, but now you're putting a larger vehicle where it isn't always as easy to maneuver it. A car's a little easier to turn on the street and back up than it is a bus or a large box truck or something. I'm just saying, that was one of the things that was brought up to my attention.
Sure. I don't personally see a reason for it. I mean, there's no difference between, that would have to be somebody who's very inexperienced in a commercial vehicle.
But
But the same scenario could happen with anybody who bought a new vehicle or SUV and the wife or whoever, daughter.
I'm just
or
saying,
son
it's-
drives it.
You would pacify a lot of the residents with that in place than it would be by doing this if they're unhappy with that vehicle's being there.
But I mean, if something like that happened now, they'd be responsible for it
Right.
already,
It
right?
should be.
So Travis, say if you were to damage your neighbor's yard with your regular car, is there anything that can be done about that? Say if you hit their mailbox or dig up their yard, is there anything legally that can be done about that?
There's no legal matter, that'd be, civil matter between two parties, right? The only legal matter would be is if somebody damaged somebody's property with a vehicle and didn't report it to them or the police within a certain time frame. However, you'd have to show that they were aware they ran over a mailbox and then failed to report it. But it still boils down to whether it's in there or not. It's a civil matter. If you damage your neighbor's property, you're civilly responsible for it. There's no legal, we're not gonna get involved in that matter. We're gonna tell you, well, work it out with your neighbor or bring them to court, because we can't enforce that civil agreement between the two parties.
So even if we added verbiage for if your vehicle, it's still the same thing, it's still a civil matter?
Still gonna be a civil
And-
matter, because we can't use the legal system to enforce civil processes.
Sure. So, I mean, any vehicle is already, basically, it wouldn't do anything by adding that to this.
It might make people feel happy, but as far as, we can't enforce you to pay for your neighbor's mailbox if you damage it. Because that's a civil matter, and you can't use law enforcement to enforce civil agreement stuff.
I mean, I'm not against having it in there, but, I mean, it's not necessary, but it's not, I mean, I don't know if it's,
Well, Travis pretty much answered that question.
Right.
so-
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
basically, there's already a way that works now, and I don't think it's gonna change anything, because we're passing this ordinance, it's already gonna be the same as it is, so. Any other discussion?
I mean, I do have a question about 227-10, Part C. Any licensed bus used in conjunction with a legitimate passenger service. So, I mean, what if you have a bus that you've turned into a camper and it's not a legitimate passenger service? You can't have that? Okay, so why is that distinguished? I mean,
Well, I included that C, that was an addition that I added before the at the first conversation. So we would allow the school bus to park in their driveway, which kind of sparked this whole conversation. Without that in there, his bus would not be permitted because his gross vehicle weight rating is too high. But we would know that a bus coming home with
Right,
a
yep.
passenger service would not have kids in it.
sure.
Otherwise, that bus is not permitted as well, unless it's under the 510 per axle. which his wouldn't be.
Okay.
And I think a regular school bus is under that anyway, unless they're buying a big Greyhound bus.
Yep, this is, that C was written specifically for
Okay.
what kind of brought up the whole conversation.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
I have a motion to approve the ordinance as written here from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to K4, resolution to consider the purchase of 2 Kubota mowers.
Mayor and council, we have 2 Kubota mowers, 2018 Kubota mowers that reached their useful life while still holding a significant trade-in value. These mowers go out on a daily basis all summer long and mow the majority of the grass in town. It gets taken care of. If one of these mowers goes down, we're falling behind quite soon. The CIP plan has $14,406 in to purchase these 2 mowers. Lano Equipment is the state contract for the Kubota, and they've quoted us $8,500 per unit and $19,898 per unit. So the trade-in value would be $8,500. The unit itself is $19,898, which brings us to these mowers would cost us $22,796, which would be a difference of what's in the CIP plan of $14,000. It would be a difference of $83.90. That's not in. That would be technically over budget for them.
Is there, I don't know, is there any options for leasing these types of mowers so that, or is that anything that's ever been considered?
We did look into leasing them a few years back, and I don't think it worked out. Price-wise, it didn't make a difference. Josie, do you remember that?
2018, I did the analysis. We considered leasing, we considered the buyback program every 5th year, and then we considered purchasing outright and holding it for a longer period of time. The lease did not make sense. Basically, the credit that you got back at the end, there wasn't the value there. And in the end, the analysis between basically this buyback program, right, for every 5th year, we're gonna trade these in while there's still value for just purchasing. It really came down to how much risk do you wanna take? The longer you own them, you increase your risk of the frequency of repairs and the scope. And at that time, that was back in 2018, the thought was, let's mitigate our risk, let's aim for something that's more consistent and more plannable. There's not definitively a right answer one way or the other because you don't know ahead of time how many repairs you'll have and what the scope of those repairs would be. So it's
Okay.
kind of up to the council is what level of risk are you interested in taking?
I guess on that, I asked that because I kind of worry about the craftsmanship that's going into products that are being made nowadays, and I don't think they're gonna last as long as they might have, 5 years ago. So I didn't know if that was, like, financially similar or dissimilar, or, how much difference there actually is. Because obviously, we don't wanna buy a lemon of a mower and have something huge the motor blow up in 2 months, and if we own it, we're stuck with it. Versus a lease, they would be the ones that would be responsible for that. Am I right?
Yes, in a lease situation, and that's actually how we ended up with Kubotas, was Matt and his staff had actually gone out and tried a number of different brands and recognized quickly that there was quite a quality difference between the different mowers.
Yep.
So that's how we ended up with Kubota, but yeah, in the end, it's not a definitive right or wrong answer because you don't know ahead of time how many repairs you'll have, so it's what level of risk does the council wish to take? Maybe not a satisfying answer, but
Right.
that's kind of how it works.
Say, Matt, is there a warranty, what is the warranty on a Kubota? So, if it's gonna make it through the one summer,
My mic's not on, but it was a no-brainer when we got these mowers. They were really, and there still are, a pretty strong mower.
I don't know, I'd worry about craftsmanship on everything nowadays. I don't know if it's something to consider, or if we just wanna buy them and see what happens, I guess, this time.
Well, I guess my question was, how many times do we have to make repairs last year? I mean, are these things getting to the point where it's a daily thing or a weekly thing where we've gotta
No.
fix something, or?
No, in my experience, after 5 years on these mowers, you can start looking at a significant repair, meaning a hydrostat motor, head gasket, with 5 years, you can start looking at a significant repair. And that's why that 5-year mark is kind of where we try to stick to, and after that 5 years, it could go another 3 years and not have a problem. I don't know. I mean, our repairs right now are spindles, blades, deck spindles,
Yearly maintenance things.
yearly maintenance, nothing critical at all. We haven't had any major repairs on these mowers yet, but if we hold on them, like Mike said, we can't take that risk, but
What's the cost of a major repair? I mean, let's say we have a head gasket go, I mean, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen, and what's the cost to fix that?
if a motor blew up or something like that, you're probably looking at, well, I would not be surprised if it was $5-6 grand for a mower.
Yep.
For a motor, one of these things. If a transmission went out, you're probably looking at the same thing, a hydrostat. We haven't had to make that repair yet, so I don't know what that would be, but can imagine it would be significant.
And then, the longer this goes, the less money you're gonna get in trade-in value.
Right.
And when, I kind of stated a little bit, but these mowers are out every day, and when one is down cutting blades, something like that, if we're doing just minimal maintenance on it, and it's at the right time of year, grass grows fast in certain areas around here, and we fall behind.
How
fast.
many
These
hours?
mowers are the mowers going mowing, like, City Hall, they don't mow, they might mow around the trees at Bluebird Park to take the progressive so we can get done faster, but they won't do Unity Park, but they might do around the trees in Unity Park. But the smaller parks, they get trailered there, and they are mowing all day long. I mean, if it's pouring rain, the guys have still been out mowing these mowers, just because they know that if I take the day off and I don't mow it, tomorrow I'm gonna regret it. Now I gotta go out and bale it, so they mow a lot of grass.
How many hours are on these mowers? Do you know?
Roughly 900 apiece.
900 apiece?
Yep.
They're just getting broken.
Yeah.
Seriously,
That's-
I know a little bit about them. I didn't realize, I was thinking they had like 5,000 or 6,000 hours on them.
I think I'd like to see us maybe wait another year and take a look at it next year again. And
Does the manufacturer have Kubota mowers are really good. Do they have a lifespan, average lifespan for that mower? Do they advertise it anywhere or online?
I don't have that answer. I probably should. I don't have that answer. I can get that answer if you'd like to find out what the manufacturer says.
Are they diesels?
Diesels, yep.
Oh, those mowers are good. They're definitely good for another double that many hours before you're gonna have major
I
problems.
mean, I get that
especially
you're gonna lose the trade-in value, obviously, the longer you
True.
keep it, but
That is true.
at the same time, you're not spending the money on something new. I mean, yeah,
How long have we had those mowers? Since 2013, I think you said?
18, he said.
2018?
The first two Kubotas we got in 2013, these that I'm presenting here are replacing 2018 motors.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, even if they break down and you put a new motor in it, well, then you got a new motor in it. So, I mean, I would think that's gonna last quite a while too,
Then
so,
the transmission goes.
well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now
But
you
then,
got 10,000 into it.
right, but that's cheaper than buying a brand new one at 20,000 too, so.
But
And it's down for how long?
900
Now
hours.
Now you're putting double the hours on the other mower because it's gonna be down for, depending on the season, could be down for a month.
If it breaks down, yeah.
900 hours on a commercial mower is not a lot at all. I guess
No,
I
it's
was,
not
I
at
was under the
all.
impression that there was a lot more.
You need
I
to
know.
base replacement on hours, not time.
Yeah, what do we wanna maybe bring it back next year and look at it again then, or
Yes.
see how the season goes there
I
with
mean,
with
and if
what we
something
got?
goes wrong, we can always address it then too, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's
don't
true
wanna
too, is
be out a
if
mower.
it does break down this summer, well, then we've still got the money, it's not like we spent it, so, I mean, it's still there. I mean, if it does break down this season, and we decide we don't wanna fix it, we still could, so, buy another one if we needed to, so. Yeah, I think for right now, I'd prefer to wait, I guess.
so, sorry, Matt.
That's all right.
Do we need a motion on that? No, nothing, okay. So K5, resolution authorizing engineering services for the Bluebird splash pad improvements.
Yes,
Hey,
thank you, Mayor.
Jason, I want to, before you go on that, I had an idea. Is there any way with that water runoff that we could put a storage tank out from the water from that, instead of going down the storm drain? Until that tank fills up, and then use that to water Bluebird Park?
Yeah, there's water reuse, systems that are definitely, used.
What I'm just saying is like, put a 20,000 gallon tank, just for numbers. Just fill that, once that's up to capacity, then let it go to the storm, then we can use that to pump out to irrigate Bluebird Park.
Yeah, we can certainly look into that.
I mean, that would cut some, water use for watering Bluebird Park, which we're doing already, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of it's actually sprinkled.
Good idea.
I don't think we water Bluebird Park, sprinkled it all. We water trees in Bluebird Park, but not really sprinkling it at all. We water trees out there.
But, yeah, we can certainly look into what that cost would be or what's involved in that and see if that's something you wanna use for either getting it piped.
Are they
over-
watering the ball field?
Yeah, that's what I was picturing, was whether we get it, just see what it takes to get it piped over to something that's currently been watered.
I mean, I'm just saying, it's just, then it's double used in the water, it ain't gonna hurt anything.
Yep,
So,
Yeah.
what's the cost of sorry, I just totally lost that word, the runoff? Or what's the cost of hooking it to the stormwater system? What is the cost of that roughly?
well, we're just still in that really rough generic estimating range, but it's probably in that 30 to 50,000 range, once we've done all the side pipes to make it a drain field, and actually excavate it and install that. So if a tank's, half that cost, but then we gotta do some more of the infrastructure to get it to be used,
Okay.
something we could certainly look into.
So I'm just thinking, I mean, if we totally eliminated it as a stormwater runoff system, and we used a pressure pot to actually water the grass every day, or use that, or even like some sort of drain field, so we wouldn't even have to accrue that expense of hooking to the stormwater, is that a feasible option? Because if you use a pressure pot, you can pressurize it and you can sprinkle, you can sprinkle all day while the system's running at the splash pad, and then you get rid of your water that way.
Sure, right, so, yes, we wouldn't have to do the drain field and the connection into the storm system. I guess specifically, if I'm understanding what you're saying, we'd have to have at least the elevation difference for the head pressure to just boil out, as opposed to actually pumping it to distribute as a irrigation system, or, overdo a different area. So, all things that's what this fee proposal is basically for, is to start doing the actual engineering analysis
Sure.
on what we can do. So far, we just kind of have that 2D schematic of how things lay out, and those are the types of things that we can certainly look into once we get survey lined up, figure out how much grade elevation we got going on, get into that cost analysis, and see where it comes out.
Okay. Yeah, Steve, I think that's a great idea, because there's a lot of residents that are worried about it wasting the water. So if you use it for another usage and save yourself water, like say if, like you're saying, we water stuff already, if you can save yourself, use that water and save it, I mean, it makes total sense. And that might appease some people's opinions on the whole project. So I think it'd be great to look into stuff like that, if we can, so.
How many gallons a day are we talking again? I
It's in the
thought,
40 to 50,000 gallons.
that's what I thought. So even a 20,000 gallon tank's only half a day's worth of water at the park.
You'd have to sprinkle to make up for it, so maybe twice a day you'd sprinkle, you know what I
Right.
mean, type deal. It depends on the tank size too.
Okay.
I mean, that's big tanks, or, two of them to get the volume, but now you got a whole lot of tank, and you got,
Sure.
so, yeah, we can at least do a reasonably quick cost comparison to say.
That would be great.
Not even close,
Sure.
or same cost, which way do you wanna go, or, I know there is a little bit of issue with water reuse on spraying irrigation. That there's some
Cleanliness.
hazardous issues on kids running through water that's been used. And so we might run into that problem with, even though this is treated water going, onto the splash pad, the whole kid, issues they may have, being in there and then spraying it. There's some environmental things that we'll just have to verify where we're spraying it or, you know, or using it, still is allowed, but, yeah.
So that's another question I have. If it's raining, that splash pad is gonna collect water, correct?
Yeah, the shape of it is dished to have it, the water
Okay.
go into its drains, so if it rains on that surface, it'll go in the drain, but no kids will be running it, so we'll have less water, but, you know, yeah. So then we have rainwater, you know, in this tank with, you know, that's why I'm a little hesitant to say we can specifically spray it on where kids are gonna be, but, you know, that's exactly where we can at least evaluate it.
Sure.
I mean, we can look into that as maybe a minor treatment of that water.
Yeah, take half of it off so that we're only needing to infiltrate the other half, and then only a little bit actually makes it in the storm system. I mean, yeah, it's great ideas, and that's where that next phase of this is to kind of actually start getting our head on. No, it's great. Sure. So on that, I guess that's exactly what this fee proposal is for. Now that it's kind of time to move into that next step, these costs were included in those estimates on total project costs and the whole funding sharing topic. And it's just to get us to be able to be authorized to move forward. Right now, we would be lining up, getting a soil boring done where the grinder pump would go in the restrooms, doing survey topography on the park area to see how it all is gonna fit. All things that we'd line up, you know, as soon as we're authorized here. And then we would start that concept layout and get a kickoff meeting with staff, with the landscape architects to start talking the seating and shade elements and all that stuff. And get this rolling. We do have two fees on it as not to exceed numbers. First is to just get us through the design and bid, and then as we kind of do with all of our other type projects, we get those bids in and find out how they came in compared to estimates, and then, you know, that's that kind of cutoff point to determine if we're actually moving forward and you know, and get a move into construction, and then we would handle the surveying and inspection and that type of thing. The one thing that's not included in these fees are the restrooms, because as we talked at that last meeting, that's being evaluated on whether it's gonna be custom designed, or, you know, the prefab unit. And, you know, essentially our services from the Bolton and Manx thing here would be getting up to and setting the elevation of that slab of the restrooms. And then whatever gets determined for the type of that would be moving forward kind of on its own separate design path, I guess, by either who you guys use or, you know, just using that prefab slab and getting it fabricated.
I want to state something in my real world, what I do for a living. There's a lot of people getting hungry for work. And I'm going to tell you right now, if we can figure out that bathroom facility, we might get that done cheaper than prefab. It's just material cost is what's gonna drive that. But there's a lot of people hungry right now,
Yep.
and they're buying work.
Yep. I hired a framer today to help me shovel off my roof, because they're dead. Nobody's spending money right now, so that is a good point. It might come in less. We have a little negotiating power.
I mean, do I wanna say that building needs to be out of block? I think for vandalism proof, yes. For functionality, no. But, I mean, we gotta look at longevity on this thing.
Yep.
I don't, you know, I still wanna look at doing something with that amphitheater for vandalism that we can clean it off easy. There's gotta be something we can do with it. It's gonna happen. It's not a matter of it happening, it's a matter of when. I mean, knock on wood, hope it's quite a ways away, but, I mean, we still gotta look at all that potential issues. And spend a little money now saves us a lot in the long run.
So on the engineering services, so that you said is part of the estimated cost of this, and so that'll be covered either by the grant or by the park dedication funds, right? So,
Yes, and I do just want to mention that we did receive, and we'll have a formal meeting with them, but Federated Co-op's grant or their organization did donate $5,000 to the splash park already.
That's awesome.
so.
I make a motion, we approve.
I guess I have maybe it's a silly question. So the engineering services for this project is going to be 28,900 plus 46,700, and that's without the bathrooms. So you're talking $75,600 for the engineering services?
Yep.
Okay. And is that par for the course? I know you're obviously the company you work for, but that just seems like a lot of money.
Actually, I was able to knock it down low. So my landscape architects, have to get involved and do all that stuff. My surveyors are involved. I got all their prices together, and we had it was actually about 10,000 higher, to be honest. And I kind of shaved off things that I knew coordination-wise and just being involved with the city, we weren't gonna need to do. That is they gave me the standard kind of services that they would need to do as a standalone. We're proposing against, other people, but in a different community that we're not that familiar with. And so I have ratcheted these down a little bit, to what I feel it actually fits with this.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I'd say, I guess, hopefully it's better than par for the course, and it is a not to exceed. So as we roll through this, our last few projects actually, I haven't actually made it to the cap of our not to exceed numbers, and because we only bill by the hour of what we do, it's just not ending up being spent. And this is just the cap that we're establishing, but.
Okay. So is that a different hourly for each one of those services then, an hourly rate? Is that different for the,
And
Like, for
one's design, one's construction, right?
yeah, so it's just,
So each staff member, we literally just bill you at each staff member's billing rate. And so, each individual that works on it has a different hourly rate. It's just whatever task that they're tasked with that need to be done, their time is being billed at their rate. And that's just how we function for all
Okay.
of our projects that we do.
So, Miss Wood, I got a question for you. Can our building official design that building without going through an engineer? The only thing would have to be engineered on it, which he'd have to sign off on anyway. I mean, like, if it was a block, the only thing that would have to be engineered stamped would be the trusses, which the truss manufacturer would have to furnish anyway.
We'll do the research on that.
What's that?
We'll do the research on that and let you know.
Because, he has to sign off if, he knows what needs to be done for footings. He knows what needs to be done on the block walls. He knows those things. If we can save that engineering funds on that, that helps a lot.
You're saying just on the bathroom?
Bathrooms, yeah. This stuff that Jason's talking about is all civil engineering stuff that we can't get away from.
sure.
It's stormwater runoff, all those kind of things. But on the functionality of the building, he is the building official, he has to do plan review, he has to know these things. If we can legally do that, I don't see a reason we can't pursue that avenue.
I agree. It's like a redundancy to have someone design it and then have your building inspector have to go through it
But
anyways.
you have to remember,
Legality.
this is a government entity, and you have to follow government guidelines. If we could get by with that, I would really entertain that. Let's get the most bang for the buck, plain and simple. That's just what I'm looking at.
Have you done that before at all, or in other cities where you'd had a building inspector design something and then you guys just stamp it, or?
Well, I guess no, on my side, we don't have, architects, or I guess we do have a structural engineer now with my company, but, we don't, Walton and Bank doesn't really get into the actual structural or architectural design of buildings. We're starting to do that structural side of it, but I don't think cost-effective wise, we would end up being the ones reviewing and stamping it. So,
Okay.
usually an engineer that's reviewing and stamping is gonna end up costing practically as much as it would have cost them to draw it.
Do the work?
But-
Yeah, right.
That's why these
It's
prefab
the stamp
things
that
are-
costs the money, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. These prefab ones, are just that covered, you don't have to deal with it. So that idea of hopefully, you know, that there's prefab kits that you can just pull out plumbing or, you know, elements to just take those sections out of what you're ordering, you know, we're looking into right now, I guess, the idea of the cost differences on prefab versus design, but, yeah, I haven't had to deal with
Sure.
somebody else designing it and then just trying to pass it off to somebody to review, to sign.
Something to think about anyway as we move forward. So-
Well, I hate to say it, engineers sometimes over-engineer things. There's a lot of overkill.
Yeah, man, that's their job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No,
You'd be mad if something.
maximize benefit for minimal cost. That's-
Where did you get it, Quick Trip?
I maximize the benefit for minimal cost. I got the rib sandwich, yeah, perfect.
Any other discussion at all, or more questions? And I'll say it again, I mean, the reason that I'm moving forward with this, and it's not something that I was in favor of the way we had planned it in the past, where we were taking, 218,000 out of 920 and then part of it out of park dedication. I mean, this is gonna be all park dedication money that has to be spent on new park amenities, according to state mandates, so, and that's the reason that we're working with the dollar values that we're working with, and that's the reason that I'm supportive of it, but I wasn't supportive of it before, so that was, I wanted to clarify that if anybody was questioning that, but any other discussion at all or questions? You made a motion.
Motion to
Brett.
approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I've got a motion to approve from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Let's see, moving on to K5, resolution authorizing engineering service, or no, sorry, I just did that one. K6, how about let's try that? Resolution to consider property owner petition for detachment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have the property owner located on the far eastern edge of the city of Isanti who is requesting detachment from the city to return to a hobby farm. They originally annexed into the city due to a potential development in 2006 as part of a large development, and since that didn't come to fruition, he just said he would like to detach and return to what he was before, so.
Actually, I think that property's quite a ways out of the city. And if he does decide to sell it again, if he decides to sell it again and they want to develop it, at that point, we can readdress it. And as right now, the way things are going, it's gonna be a while. I'd say let's let him go with it.
So, how much money in taxes are we gonna lose because of that detachment?
I couldn't say 100%, but, my guess would be you're probably not talking more than a few $1,000. Yeah.
I guess,
I mean,
I
for that type of lot where it's not developed, we don't have a lot of large structures, that kind of thing,
I believe it was around 1,800.
okay,
That's
I think
what
it's
figured.
totally morally wrong to allow him to detach even though we forced annexed residents, 3 years ago. Oh, I know, but I mean, why, he's getting city services. Well, he's, okay.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't have
hasn't.
city
There's no
services.
sewer and water near there.
But plowing, is that all county over there?
Nope.
All county.
Okay. So he's not benefiting from being in the city at all?
Just like the spectacular events, that was the biggest buffoon thing he ever made in his life. It doesn't even have natural gas over there.
Yeah, I think, not only that, but he asked to be annexed in with a different intention, and now he's asking to be annexed out, so I get that, yeah, we're gonna lose some tax dollars, but it is his
Yeah.
property, and he changed his mind, I don't have any problem letting him take it back,
It's almost 12 acres. I motion to approve.
I'll second it.
I have a motion to approve, the resolution from Councilman Heeman, and a second from Councilman Lundin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to K7, lighting infill plan discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This was a request by Councilmember Merrill to discuss this evening. in particular about the lighting along County Road 5, CASA, and what the city's plans were on their schedule for infill.
Okay, so for this one, during my ride along, and I guess over the last few years, I have noticed over by, Heritage, by Quick Trip and everything, it's really dark, especially in front of that strip mall. There's not much for lighting there, and it's, the officer said that every time he drives through there, it's a concern even for him that someone's gonna be there and he's not gonna see him and he's gonna hit him. And I know it's been a concern for me too. I work out over there at night and I see people walking to Quick Trip. I mean, any hour of the night, you can see people walking to Quick Trip. And there's really no lighting over there, but there are power poles. So I know it's in the capital improvement plan or the plans in, 2027 to do something about that, but I think it needs to be expedited before someone's hurt. It's a public safety issue. The police officer thought it was important. I think it's important. So the poles are already there. I mean, what's the difference doing it now versus, 3-4 years from now, we could have somebody hit there I think it's important to do something about it now because it's gonna have to be done anyways.
What part of the road are you talking about, 5?
Yeah, but like in front of the strip mall, like the Subway and Anytime Fitness, any of that area.
We have a big gray area there, buddy. That's county-owned road.
Okay.
We don't own it.
Okay,
I tell you what, I've been fighting to get some other streets infilled lights. You drive down and there's a block and a half long street. There's 3 lights, one on the end, one on the end, and one in the middle.
okay.
It's pretty bad. I'm all for it. I'm gonna tell you what, I'll stand up here and campaign for the next 100 years. I'm all about having streetlights, but we have to deal with the county on that. That's
Okay.
County Road 5.
Steve, I think, because it is in here for 2027, so we must be able to do something.
So we still have to request and apply for a permit with the county to do that. But this is not the county paying for these lights. This is the city
The
paying
city.
for lights along that County Road Redway.
I mean, we could,
If they do approve it, this is a schedule, because we set aside a little bit of money every year to do lighting infill. This is our plan, but.
I don't have a problem moving forward, that 2027 year where we said 7,500, but then like 23 and 24 here, we've only got 7,000 budgeted for that. So I mean, if you want to move it forward, I don't have a problem with that, but I'd like to move those back then, so we're just prioritizing that light versus the lights that we talked about for
Sure.
the next 2 years.
Isn't that light gonna be really close to that intersection? That
Well,
we're,
that's the thing too, is if we build a
can't
stop,
we-
if we put a stoplight there, then,
do it all at once?
well, yeah, so maybe we make them wanna wait until we have a stoplight.
but that could be 10 years from now. I mean, we could keep waiting, and public safety shouldn't wait.
But we would know, how long were they gonna take on that?
Yeah, I thought it was this year.
So we did approve it. I know that they already approved it at their county board meeting, so I would assume that it'll move pretty quickly. But they have to collect their data. I'm not sure, Jason, do you recall if they had a timeline on it? I don't think I did see. So hopefully that the study will get updated and finalized in a timely fashion, and then it will have to go back before the county board for decision. But if there is some lighting along that intersection as part of the project, it would be the 2/3, 1/3 split is what I would imagine.
So, I mean, with that project, are all the power poles gonna come down and then they'll just do new ones? Or, I mean, say if we put the lights up now, would they have to come down for that project? I mean, otherwise,
So,
does that
you
make
know,
sense?
given the 3 primary options that were on that last report, there was the signal intersection that would be more constrained to the actual specific intersection. The roundabout would have to widen and taper lanes for a reasonably longer route coming into it to position the cars and get it all rerouted, where that whole length would probably be a footprint of impact to where the poles have to shift and things. And there's kind of required lighting for the road in and that spacing. So from either direction, it'd actually get lighting for the entrance roads into a roundabout. And then that third option was a double roundabout, at which point that taper would have started before the Credit Union Drive Road, and then it'd basically go all the way through past, that strip mall. And so that one would likely impact the poles for
Sure.
that whole run. I do believe the evaluation we did was, like full, consistent, uniform lighting for the whole entrance from 65 to the tracks, basically. So, I mean, the idea of picking spots that are outside of that specific range, you know, and if there's a dark spot, like at the entrance to the strip mall that, you know, is maybe far enough away and mount that on an existing pole versus,
Sure.
you know, maybe closer down by McDonald's, you know, is a different, you know, if those are the spots that are the worst, or, you know, that we could just pick off to help, but not spend money on something that's gonna get taken out,
Sure.
you know, might be something if there's a specific spot you're looking for.
Okay.
That's what most of the rest of this whole plan was going around finding those spots. And then the whole entrance road was gonna be kind of that larger undertaking. And I think it got pushed back as far as it did for this exact thought process was, you know, right when we were finishing that was the beginnings of this study that, you know, we thought were gonna be done a while ago, but, you know, that could be an alternative at least, to maybe just do a couple of them
Sure.
instead of the actual proposed, like, full uniform bright light now, to just help, you know?
Yep, so I was thinking, when I brought this up, I was more of looking for a temporary solution, like, say, if we have used light equipment that we could just put out there on a tower or on a pole, or if there's some temporary solution that we can do that's not gonna cost us a lot of money. Say, if you buy this, one of the 135 watt shoebox lights with an 8-foot arm, I don't know exactly what that is, but if you buy that, put it up now, can't you just take it down and put it back up again later on the correct thing? I mean, we could be dragging this intersection out for 5 years. I mean, even if it gets approved, it's gonna take years for it to get done, and you're gonna have people still driving. That's the most busiest road in Isani, and it's the least well-lit probably. So, I mean, if we can do anything to help, I mean, the police officers think it's important, I think it's important, there's gotta be people that notice it too. So I don't know if there's anything we can do to put out a used equipment or buy a new light and then take it down when we need to and use it on the, I mean, I don't,
Yeah, I do believe actually, on top of just kind of our map, I don't know what actually maybe is in the agenda, but we have kind of an overall map that goes with which year goes with what. But this actual exact corridor, we actually did the one level deeper of an evaluation back 5 years ago, where it was how many of these lights can go on existing poles versus how many would need their own pole. And, you know, I can go dig up that one and see if it, you know, the 5 that were gonna go on existing poles, you know, maybe could be the ones to put in, so you don't actually put in poles that are gonna have to move, but, you know.
Sounds great.
I mean, even if you have to take them down and move them to a different pole during the construction process, it's not like they're useless, you know? That's not something would city workers wire that in or mount that, or would that have to be a hired out service, or?
The Connexus is who's gonna put the lights in.
Okay. And do you know roughly what they charge per light? Well, I suppose it totally depend, or,
It depends on the light, which light is it. The lights that that are selected here are gonna be uniform with what is already there. So it'd be, if it's at an 8-foot arm, this one's gonna be uniform, it's gonna be the same light with an 8-foot arm. So wherever these locations are, they coincide with what lights are already there on that street, on that block.
okay.
The costs that were originally obtained are within your packet. So you can see some of those, depending on the types of lights, it does have a cost. Now, those costs have not been updated. This was originally from back with that original memo quite a few years ago, but gives you an idea.
Didn't we lease those lights? Wasn't there under a leasing program with them, with Connexus? Back when Don was city administrator? I think that was actually before your time at Public Works.
I'm not sure about leasing lights. I'm not aware.
Because there was a program that they had that we were on, because,
Oh, that was the original lighting infill program we were on. Yeah, that ended, which then this is what came in after that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew there was something, and it went away for some reason, but and Council Merrill, I've been a big supporter about getting a lot more streetlights in this town.
So,
I guess for lack of better words, I watch a lot of crime show stuff, and I see a lot of sick people out there, and that doesn't mean they're not here.
right.
And look, man, when I grew up in here, I used to ride bicycle till, when there used to be a curfew, the siren would go off in town for curfew, and you had to be home by then. That's when you scurried home.
So,
It's a different world today.
so the cost on these, I saw it in the packet, I was under the impression that was just the light, but that's install cost as well? That's the installed cost of each light? So basically, I mean,
At that time.
so what I'm saying is, you're gonna spend the money on the light regardless. So basically, what it's gonna cost to have a safer road is just the install cost, the one time. That's in one extra install cost. So, I mean, I don't know, it doesn't break down the install cost, but say it's, for 5 lights, it's $1,000 each for an install. So that's $5,000 that we're gonna spend basically extra to get these lights put up to be, have a safer road for God knows how many years until this project's actually done. So, I mean, that $5,000, just a rough example, is not that much for public safety. I mean, if,
But it's that, now you gotta remember, that's years ago, so that's probably gonna be 3 to 5
Oh, right,
times
yeah,
more.
right.
And then, if we put them up and then they gotta move them, they're gonna bill us to move them.
Right.
And then reinstall them again, so and all that cost, just, you, all of a sudden that, we'll just use a number of $5,000 per light. That 5,000 just turned into 15,000.
but you're still utilizing the hardware,
I'm
the
just
light.
telling you, I don't disagree with you, but now you're gonna start throwing money at something.
Yeah, we don't have the numbers. I guess I'd like to know how much an install of these lights costs, because, like I said, if you put up 5 lights and the install cost is $5,000, that's well worth the $5,000 to have peace of mind for the police, anybody that travels that road for, I mean, I would go out on a limb and say that that project's not gonna be done for 5 years, that, any sort of project with Heritage. So, I mean, if we do something about the lighting so that people are safer in that area, and it, you know, $5,000 roughly for just a number for 5 years of better safety is, I mean, that's a no-brainer in my opinion, but I guess I would like to know the numbers on what it costs to put up a light. And then if they have to reinstall the light, if they have to reinstall it on a new pole, like, I would think that that would be less money than the initial install, because, but who knows?
Well, so, I mean, we've got, for 2027, we've got $7,500 budgeted for Heritage Boulevard west of Highway 65 south. It's a 135-watt shoebox light with an 8-foot arm, so 7,500 was the price, you know, when we did this. Is that for just one of those lights? That's on its new pole, or do we know that? I mean,
Yeah, I guess specifically, you know, if you have that map there.
I don't think we have the.
Yeah,
map.
it's there.
Is it here? I didn't see it yet.
Those individual dots
Oh,
are
is it
the
here? Oh, yeah.
individual light, like, spots that are going. Whether or not, you know, I guess, you know, in the 2027 one you just read, I guess maybe I wasn't listening clear enough to know if it's a pole and arm. That dollar amount sounded more like it's a pole and arm, as opposed to, if you look on that figure there, you know, there's 4 other lights that are recommended to go in that strip there over the next, you know.
Gotcha. Yeah.
2026, there's one that's supposed to go in by McDonald's there. 2027, 2028, 9, and 2030. So it's actually, to get those 5 lights in, if you add those 5 up, I mean, that price gets up there. But the ones that are mounted on poles, I believe, were the ones that were in that $3,800 range, and then once you're actually putting in a pole, it kind of doubles it, you know, more or less. So, so that's why, you know, if you look at that list, if we went with even just 3 that are mounting it on a pole, it's still going to be, you know, in today's dollars, you know, 15 grand or something. And then that topic of being able to either, in the future, if they just have to move a pole back, if the pole's in good shape, sometimes they can literally move it. Other times, if the pole is old enough and they just, you know, or they have to move it enough, it'll just be, yeah, done, and then whether or not it can be salvaged off of it and put on the new one. But where I'm trying to go with that through the roundabout area specifically is gonna have very specific lighting required on the arm that has to get right onto the entrance, you know, at a very certain lumen and spacing that, it's not likely to get to be reused at that same spot. But, you know, could it be moved over to the southwest area of town or something?
Sure.
You know, for just our own use would be the
Yep.
reuse option probably.
Yep.
So the concern is people crossing the street going into Quick Trip
Or walking down the street, I know.
from McDonald's down?
No, from, like, the old folks' apartment building next to the strip mall, that area between the Hardware Hank and Quick Trip, basically that whole area. It's dark. If you drive there at night, there's next to nothing there for lights, and even police are worried about that, just them driving through. The officer I rode with said every single night he drives through there 20, 30 times a night or whatever, and he's worried every single time he drives through there. And I think that's a huge issue. I mean, we can't keep waiting on something. If we can buy a light, put it up, and really the only extra cost to us is the install, because you can always use the light somewhere else. So if, like I said, if the install cost is $1,000, I have no idea what the actual install cost of that is. That's all you're losing out on, because you still have the light you can use, even if, say, 3 years from now, we have this construction project go through with the road, you can still use the light somewhere else, you know, so it's,
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I agree, I mean, you know, I'm at that intersection all the time.
Yeah,
so-
right.
And
It's
every
dark.
time I turn right, or every time I cross through there, I think about, boy, I sure hope I don't run anybody over, because I've almost done it before, you know, so, because you cannot see, so it is a bad spot, and I don't have any problem spending the money, you know, to do that first, as long as we stay within the budget that we've got, you know, over the next couple of years, if we've got 5,000 budgeted there, but I think maybe the question for now is, can we use some of the poles that we already have that you saw out there? So that would be probably the first question, and then the second question is, you know, once we know that, I mean, how far along are we on maybe getting that stoplight, and we'll maybe know that as soon as that study hopefully is done, so.
Yep.
So I'd say for right now, I mean, the direction we really wanna send everybody is just, what would the cost be to utilize the poles we already have potentially,
and I believe there are 7 poles on that stretch there, that any one of the 7. I mean, I don't know how much lighting we actually need, if you need a light every 3rd pole, or, I mean, I guess it depends, but I believe I counted there's 7 poles that are already out there, so. We don't have any used lights or anything sitting around, okay.
Any other discussion on that? I mean, that's what we're trying to get done, right? I mean, that's what you want? Okay,
We will bring it back for when we have
Yeah.
more information.
okay. But yeah, I think it's a great point, and it is an issue that we should do something about, for sure. And like you said, I mean, you don't know how long the county's gonna take, and, you know, I mean, hopefully we will soon, but, all right, let's see, so the consent agenda, any questions on that, or any discussion at all?
I do have a question on L3, Travis. Resolution accepting resignation of part-time officer. Can you talk about why he left, or was there a specific reason, or why he's wanting to leave, or,
He's no longer able to work.
okay. How long has that, I guess, I don't know, that's just,
That's not a position we need to fill now because we have that other
Yeah.
full-time
He has
guy,
not,
right?
worked a shift for 2+ years.
okay, that's what I was asking, if we're gonna need to fill, okay.
Any other discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I've got a motion to approve the consent agenda from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Lundin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. We are adjourned.
Yeah, because you can use the light even after it's, even if it comes down, if we never do the project, we just gonna keep doing it now?
I gotta give these guys paperwork, and they got something for me to sign.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,